Just keeping up with the workload, I think, is challenging because it's like the model is just making as much content as possible. And
Mm.
so just like trying to not get burnt out and, pace myself and make sure that the quality of content is not going down, which is, I've made like over 100 videos in
Oh
the
wow.
5 years that I've been there. So it's just a
Hey guys, welcome to the West Coast Initiative podcast. This is the first podcast interview that we have on YouTube. And on today's special guest, we have Auri Jackson, who's an environmentalist, and she's also works for Buzzfeed. She's been doing multiple things in the community environmentally wise. She gives out tips every day on how to save the world one day at a time. We really go in depth about what she does, how she's helping the world, how you can help the world, and why it's very important as well. And there's some stuff I didn't even know about, like for instance, some houses that are like melting down from frostbite. Hey guys, I know it's hard right now with everything that's going on, not being able to work out inside the gyms. But have you guys heard of Cribs of Wolf Boxing? Cribs of Wolf Boxing is an outdoor style boxing gym. So he brings out the punching bags, the speed bags, everything outside. So that way everything's 6 feet away from each other. You get the energy from the outside as well, the flow. It's really good to be out in the nature. It's out of the ordinary, you know what I'm saying? And it's perfect timing in these times where you can't go inside or you're worried about the germs that are spreading indoors. This is an outdoor activity. The discipline in boxing will help you grow as a person as well. It's suitable for all ages and genders as well. So check out Crypto World Boxing on Instagram and on Facebook. Let them know that you're interested. Let them know that West Coast Initiative sent you, so that way you get a discount in the future. Later, guys. Hey guys, welcome to the West Coast Initiative. I'm your host, Alex Castillo. And on today's show, we have a really special guest, Auri Jackson, who is an environmentalist and works for Buzzfeed and always fighting the fight against the waste. How are you doing today, Auri?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the West Coast Initiative. I'm really excited, especially because so many of the people that we know have been on the show and went to high school with that are doing amazing things. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to be a part of that group.
Well, you're doing really big things, and I a little bit on the intro, I forgot to mention you're also a director and a writer too. Like I've known you when in high school, when we were at high school together, you were big into video editing and whatnot. You were part of the K Arts production, all that. So how are the times right now in that industry, in the video editing, directing? I mean, are you doing a lot of projects right now, or?
Yeah, so I work in web video, which is pretty siloed from like traditional film and TV, but it has definitely changed. I'm essentially filming projects remotely now. So I've been doing a lot of Zoom videos, which is sort of a bummer, but in a way has been a gift because I'm just doing interviews with people who I wouldn't have been able to have in person in LA. And so probably would have had to do a Zoom interview anyway. And so it's just been a lot of like women who are on the front lines of climate change and who are mostly Indigenous, who are, coming up with solutions to climate change. So that has been cool to like film with women like that over
Mhm.
Zoom and just being able to not think like, oh, I have to film what's happening or who I can get in LA. Like I can broaden out a bit. So in a way it's been a gift. But yeah, I'm just working from home for BuzzFeed.
Wow. And how are
So
the COVID times treating you?
I've been stressed out about the world at large, but on a personal level, I've been thriving. So I almost feel like a little guilty about it, but I love not going into an office because
Mm.
before I had like a sort of like 9 to 6, Monday through Friday thing. So it really works for me to work from home. I've like never been so well rested, so well fed, and I'm working out at home every day.
And I'm
So
about to
I'm
say,
just,
well fed. Everybody's well fed right now.
but how about you? I know you just had a little one, so that's so exciting.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so fun, and honestly, the pandemic, I'm not gonna lie, kind of did help because we got to be home more. Now I'm doing a lot more stuff, of course, work wise. But at the beginning, it was scary at the beginning because we were stuck in the hospital for about 5 days, and honestly, like stuck in the like
You had your
delivery part.
son during COVID.
Yeah, we had our son in June, so it's kind of like one of the biggest heights at that time, and so that process it was weird because it was my first son, right? So it was my first child. Anything like I didn't know how even the whole hospital process goes,
Yeah.
and when we were in the hospital, my fiance had some complications. Luckily, she was all right, but we did
Oh,
have to stay a little longer than we expected, and it was 5 days. And I'll tell you what, those 5 days are really you're in that room. You can't leave. Like you can't even go to the lobby. Like you're stuck in that room and no one can come in, no one come out. I mean, luckily it was good. Don't get me wrong, because we actually had that little special time moment, just us, like what we just went through, what she just went through, and but still being stuck in that little room can kind of yeah, in that little room just kind of gets to you at times.
yeah.
But it's a fun adventure, honestly. Having to saw him again each day is just an amazing day with him.
How old is your son now?
He just turned 5 months last this week. Actually, he's just turned 5 months this week.
Oh,
So now he's able to sit up a little bit. He's able to actually look around, like actually pivot his neck. So it's like I tell you, it's a blessing each day waking up to him. But like we did have a little scare though, because we did have someone we knew someone that got COVID, and I was kind of in contact with that person. So I did isolate myself from my family. This was about like a couple of weeks ago. Uh,
mm,
I kind of isolated myself in the back room, like literally, like did not try to. It just I wasn't sure if I had it, right, but I did
yeah.
get tested. I tested not negative, thankfully, but still, like those 2 to 3 days waiting for those results, it's just detrimental. You're not able to hold your son or even kiss your
Oh,
fiance or anything like that. You're just literally closed up again. It reminded me so much of being in hospital.
good that you took the precautions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we do. And we definitely do. And for anybody out there, wear your mask. Like, even common courtesy. Like don't
Yeah.
don't fight it. But
It,
anyways, back to you. So a little bit, I know we talked a little bit about that, about your BuzzFeed and how you started doing web advice. Can you tell a little bit to the audience what more exactly, like what's your role in BuzzFeed? Like, because are you the director of one certain part or?
so the way that it works at BuzzFeed is that you essentially do all of the roles because it's web video.
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of working on my own and I just make a bunch of videos. And my official title is lead video producer, but that's just because I've been there for 5 years now. I just had my 5 year BuzzFeed
Oh,
anniversary, which
nice.
is insane. But yeah, I essentially, will come up with the idea and then make it happen and shoot it and edit it and put in the stock music that we have access to, and then, do the sound and then package it up and then it goes on the internet.
So how did this all start? Like, what passion came first, the video part or the environment part when you were at a young age?
The video part did, and I sort of stumbled into the environmental part. I've always cared about the environment and had like a connection to nature. And I used to go on really long like beach walks at night and in the day with my dad. And so I've always felt connected to nature and like felt distressed about how we were treating it, but didn't really have any tools or didn't really know what to do about it. And so then when I stumbled across zero waste, that was really exciting for me because it felt like, oh, these are actionable things that I can do to reduce my impact.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
so we'll go back onto the video part. When was your first time actually doing like getting into video? At a young age or?
Yeah, it was at a young age. So my mom had me pretty young. She had me when she was 20, and she was going to college when I was in middle school. And so when she was going to college, she was going to Mesa, and then she transferred to UCSD like after a couple of years. Because, she was like,
Yeah.
essentially, I went back and forth between my parents, so I saw them equally. But my mom they were both kind of like single parents because they were living separately, but I
Separately.
was going back and forth. So they had a lot of the similar struggles as like a single parent, just like not as full time, I guess, because I was
Mhm.
going back and forth. But so it just took her a while to like finish school, and I'm obviously really inspired that she was like working full time and like raising me and then going to school too. But so she did video classes when she was going to school, and then she would put me in her projects or have me be her helper. And
Ah.
so that is how I discovered sort of my love of video. And since then, I was like, oh, I want to be a director. And then, yeah, that kind of just stuck.
How old were you when this happened?
I think I was like in middle school. Yeah, it was like 11 to 13. She was taking different, and actually, we kind of do the same job. So my mom was working at UCSD at the Supercomputer Center when she was in college. She got like an internship there, and then she got a job there, and she was making videos. But she also is a graphic artist, so she was making the website and some animations for them too. But we essentially have the same job now because she makes videos for the web, but she makes it always about, she's always worked in academia.
Mm.
So she made videos for UCSD and then has like continued to make science videos.
Oh, so it runs in the family then, the
Yeah,
whole
I guess
video. Oh,
so.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you guys ever worked on a project together?
Just like the ones from when she was going to school, but we
Mm.
haven't like collaborated on projects as when I was an adult. But that could be fun.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you guys should definitely do a documentary, you know? I mean, I see you doing pretty cool things. Like, I was looking earlier in your Instagram page, how many people you've met in your journey of even to people in South America and whatnot, of coffee and stuff. How now going towards the environment, how did the whole environment part start? How did that start really taking into action? Was that also at that young age, or was it after high school, college?
That kind of happened. I mean, this is something I had been on my mind, but I just didn't know what to do. And I remember taking like we had a class in school, which was like AP Environmental Studies, and I took that. But honestly, like the teacher just played documentaries, and I was so upset because like we had to take the test, and I like we were not prepared at all. So I was like had always wanted to learn, but then it didn't happen, and then I didn't really pursue it in college. But then okay, so I worked at a movie theater in high school. I worked at Ultrastar at Hazard Center with Timmy, actually.
Oh
And
wow! Shout out to Timmy.
yeah, and at the end of the night, we had this gigantic trash thing that we had to take out every night called the whale. And it was
Mm.
like all the trash from the movie theater.
I
And I
know it's like a
remember,
huge cartwheel, right?
yes. And then for me too, I'm like 4'11" and like don't weigh that much. So it was like this gigantic struggle of like I had to like put it up this ramp and to take it to the garbage. And I didn't have to do that every night, but enough that it like really imprinted in my mind. And I was like, we're just making so much trash. Like this is
Yes, that's so
insane.
true.
What is happening? But then when I was working at Buzzfeed, I came across these people that were doing zero waste, which basically just means trying to send as little as possible to landfill. And
Hmm.
also zero waste, it's not a new concept, like all of our grandparents were living in more zero waste ways, and like indigenous cultures are still living with a more zero waste ethos. It's just really with the advent of like consumerism and convenience and the consumption of oil, because like plastic is made from oil and it's like really cheap to make
Oh wow!
plastic.
Oh, wow! I did not know that.
Yeah, so and also there's oil in everything. Like there's oil in our clothes because like the synthetic fibers that they create are plastic, and that's from oil. And it's
Wow.
kind of trippy when you like think about it. You're like, and we're drinking out of oil, like the plastic
Yeah.
water bottle, like this death sludge that was in the crust of the earth for millennia, and just like all the dead organisms, and we're like, yeah, like let's, and then Vaseline, like that's a petroleum product too, and it's
Yeah,
like
you're right.
let's
Yeah.
rub that on our lips and our nipples, like that makes sense. you
Yeah.
know it's just a little like,
I'm,
oh
I'm I'm guilty of that because I used to box a lot, and we
yeah,
always use Vaseline so that we kind of like the punches don't evade it. But I never thought of that. But yeah,
guilty, it's not even guilty, like
yeah,
it's just like what we use,
yeah.
and I guess in some ways it's good because the all that those petroleum products are like derived from like when you extract crude oil
Mm.
into like gasoline, there's all these byproducts, and or just like, so we have to figure out what to do with it. So I guess it's resourceful in a way, but also like I feel like it's not super great for you to put on your body,
Yeah.
petroleum products. um yeah.
I've never thought. Yeah, I didn't even know, but that's kind of mind blowing to me right now.
Yeah.
um, and what was like your? So did you get into environmental until BuzzFeed, or were you
I
actually doing?
didn't even answer your question. I'm so sorry. I got
No, no,
so
you're good. You're good. No, that's okay. That's okay.
so yes, so I was at BuzzFeed and then I saw this zero waste thing that people were doing. And then I decided to do a video where I tried to not make trash for 30 days to try to be zero waste.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that video essentially changed my life because zero waste was my gateway drug into environmentalism. And I got interested, or I became a vegetarian after that. I started, taking the bus to work and um, trying to compost. And so all of these things kind of sprang up from zero waste. And I think zero waste was just an easy way for me to attach. Like, I think there's many different ways that people can access environmentalism. Like for some people it's through diet and like becoming a vegan and things like that. But for me, it was like trash because it's like this very tangible thing that you're like, oh, I can try to not create this. And,
Mhm.
so that was my way of getting into it. And so I just sort of stumbled into it. And then I made that video. And then I was like, wow, I am really passionate about this. And I started making more videos. And I was working when I first started at BuzzFeed doing like trending topics. So, making videos about people trying different Starbucks drinks and reviewing them like
Mhm.
tests. And then I did a video where like guys try periods, and that was super fun. But then yeah, so then after a couple years of like just making environmental content sort of on the side of like my actual work,
Yeah.
and I had some supportive bosses, so they would let me work on it. They eventually let me just focus on making environmental content as of like 2 years ago.
Oh
So I like sort of essentially created a position for myself, which is why I've been there for so long, because I am actually doing something I really am
enjoy.
excited about.
And that's actually really cool because you honestly turned your skill that is video, right? Video directing. You turned that, and then you were like, I really want to be part of this project, helping no waste, zero waste time. So why not combine both? And now you have a platform, BuzzFeed, that's just reaches out to millions, millions of viewers. And now, like your tips, like your your reels are pretty funny on Instagram. We're just like when you go out, spaz out at the end, like
I haven't made as many. I
I
feel like
know. I
I
think you
need
needed to.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't even know you had those reels until I went on the explore part, and then you just came out of nowhere, and I was like, "Oh, that's Ari."
It's, yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
free foray into that, just cackling at the camera. Yeah.
so right now in the time that we're at, of course, like the pandemic is horrible at the moment, especially right now. The cases are going up. How important you think right now is it ever to really take care of our environment?
Yeah. It that's sort of been the silver lining of this whole pandemic, actually, is that obviously I would not like to see this environmental benefit from a pandemic, but the pandemic has been pretty great for the environment because people are traveling less, they're driving less, they're flying less. And so our emissions, I think I read, are actually down. um, I don't know the exact figure, but it's like 7% or some
Oh
impressive
wow.
number. And it's sort of on track.
And this is worldwide?
Yes.
Oh wow.
So also just like, with the Paris Climate Agreement, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is the UN, like set up this panel. They say that by 2030, we need to have our emissions, and by 2040, we need to be at net zero in order to just not, become extinct. or really start
Oh,
to
wow.
see like the catastrophic effects of climate change, you know? And so in order to do that, like we have to go down by a certain percentage each year, our emissions. And COVID has really helped us drop our emissions. And I don't know if you've seen some of the stories about, different places. Like I remember reading the canals in Venice, like cleared up, and there was all this amazing wildlife that had, propagated it again in a very short amount of time just because people are
Stop.
doing laps. So
Yeah.
obviously, I don't want to see this happen
Yeah.
in a way that is causing so much pain and suffering for so many people. But it is kind of cool to see a window into what it can look like if we can reduce our emissions. And also just the mass move to telecommuting, where, maybe we don't need to travel around as much as we think we do, you know?
Hmm.
And so, especially in a city like LA, if everyone isn't driving to work every day, that's way less traffic, that's way less carbon going into the atmosphere. Like that's really beneficial.
Yeah. And
So,
it's funny that you live in LA. It's one of the most crazy cities, I swear. I mean, from what I've seen, LA in the past recent years has gotten better for sure. But there was a point where it was like everywhere you go, there was trash on the floor. Like
I feel like
I'm pretty sure there's still so many places still in LA, but I've noticed that the last few years it's gotten a lot better for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so now that you're back in, you're doing all this fully on the environment. How do you research these places? Like, how do you know all this? Like, how do you research? Like, oh, we should do this. We should do this project. How do you get that? Do you have a team, or do you honestly yourself
Oh,
do all that?
I don't have a team. I mean, the thing is, I feel like maybe if I had a team, I could be more strategic about like sort of the things that I cover, but kind of essentially like if I'm interested in something, or a lot of the videos I make too, I'm not in. So I think people know me most for the videos that I'm in, but I'm actually in a small portion of the videos that I make. And a
Mm.
lot of it, I've actually connected through people on Instagram or through like reading a book and then finding like, oh, there's this really cool person who's doing this really cool thing to help the environment, and like, let me do a feature on them. Sometimes people reach out to me and they're like, hey, like I'm doing this cool thing, like, do you want to cover me? And I'll do that. So it
What
really just happens in a lot of different ways.
what have been some of your favorite projects that you've done?
With other people, I would say my favorite projects are, I did a video with this guy named Rob Greenfield, who actually I hadn't heard of, but he's like a big environmental guy. And he did
Mm.
this project where for a whole year, he only ate food that he himself had grown or foraged. And so I did a video like about
Wow.
that. And he is like so out of this world. Like he showed up to Buzzfeed in the middle of Hollywood with like barefoot, like he had like taken the bus barefoot
Wow.
from where he was staying, just like walking on the concrete barefoot. And I was like, you're on a whole nother
Different
level.
level.
And I also just got to do a video with Mary Robinson, who's the first female president of Ireland, who's done a lot of work with the UN about climate change. So that was really cool. And then sort of my videos I'm really excited about now, and one has come out, was with this woman named Patricia Cochran, who is a Native Alaskan elder, sort of talking about how her community has been affected with climate change. And like for us, like in California or in like the US, like it's like, okay, yes, it's a thing, and like we're
Yeah.
seeing the fires, and so it feels real. But like for some of these frontline communities, it's like it's a reality of every day. So like
Oh,
for
wow.
her, like a lot of their houses in Alaska are built on permafrost that was permanent, but now with climate changes it's going away. So their houses are literally falling into the sea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
That's
so
crazy.
it's like we think about climate change sort of as this thing that's sort of distant, but it's like it's actually happening now to people who are the least responsible and the most vulnerable, which is very upsetting because, in the sort of, where we're at, we are Americans in general, also, we consume so much resources compared to other parts of the world. And in the global north or whatever, we're the ones, like Europe and us, we're the ones that are consuming the most.
The most.
And we will also experience climate change less because we're a little more north. So like the equator, like they're the ones who are the least responsible and will be the most affected.
Wow,
So
I did not know
it's
that. That's
bummer. It's
crazy.
very unjust. Unjust.
I swear, if you guys are for the audience right now, whoever's listening, if I'm getting as much information, I'm pretty sure they're getting just as much information right now. Because that's my book. I didn't even know about those. Those houses? What were they on? You said
So permafrost. So there's like
permafrost.
permanent ice that like is always there that people have, she is Inuit. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but she's like Native Alaskan. And so their homes, they were more sort of nomadic, but then after like the Canadians came in and like colonized, they've settled in certain places, but like some of their places that they've been in for generations, now they're having to totally relocate.
Wow.
And then there's also places like the Marshall Islands, so they are a Pacific island country, and they're like
The
they live
Philippines, right?
the Marshall Islands. I think it's in that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
They live on these really tiny atolls,
Mm-hmm.
which are these really skinny islands that you can literally, like, if you see a picture of it, you see the ocean on both sides. Like, it's very skinny, and like their country is disappearing. Like they need to find a new place to go because like
Wow.
the sea level is rising and the storms are getting more intense. So their country is just completely, it's going to go away, And so that's why a lot of these nations, like, they're calling for us to keep our world below below 1.5 degrees. So like the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they're saying that like in order for us to have a chance, we need to keep our world under 2 degrees Celsius, which is about 1.7 degrees Fahrenheit. But for the island nations, they're saying, no, we need 1.5 because we're going to disappear if we go. And to 1.7, 2 degrees, it doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah.
But it is in a global scale. It means the difference between like a nation disappearing.
That's crazy. Oh my God. I know. And can we keep it consistently? Like if we meet those goals, do you believe it can be consistent?
I mean, yes, we have all the tools to reduce our emissions. We just need the political will to curb our emissions. And like, it is drastic, but like, I think we have time. Like, I'm still hopeful. We need to have our emissions by like 2030 and then be at net zero by 2040. And then absolutely, we really need to be at net zero in 2050 if we haven't done that. But it's just like also like investments, like as you and me, like we can think of it in a 10-year time period. Like, how can we divest from fossil fuels in our lifetime? Like, okay, it's usually big purchases. So like the next big purchase you do, like maybe you can get like a hybrid or like even your refrigerator, like efficient. Like, and I live in an apartment, like I switched my energy over to wind energy instead of coal because there's these like third-party energy providers. So there's ways you can divest from fossil fuels.
Well, it's like solar, okay? Like is that yeah?
Solar is totally okay. I just when I looked at this company, third-party company that works with your energy provider. So like I'm still using my same, because you're locked into that depending on where you're located.
Yeah.
But they weren't offering solar, they were offering wind. So then I was like, okay, I'll sign up for that. And it's not, it's, if you do 50%, it's like the same price as your regular. You can save a little bit. But I don't know if Arcadia is available in San Diego, but I think they're available nationwide.
Is wind energy really sustainable?
Yeah, it's definitely better. It's more renewable.
Wow.
Then the wind is great. Yeah. There's also like offshore wind. There's also marine energy, like
wow.
Harnessing the power of the tides and making energy. So like there's literally so many ways that we can make renewable energy. And also the thing is, it's now cheaper than coal and fossil fuels. And it's like, yeah, it's just cheaper. It makes more economic sense. So it doesn't even makes sense for us to use fossil fuels anymore, because it's easier, and it also can create so much jobs.
Yeah. No, and honestly, that's good to know. I didn't even know about the wind. That's why I was asking. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know. Because all I've heard is solar, right? Or in
Yeah.
San Diego, it's like, oh, switch to solar panels. And I've always heard companies can work with you, especially with SDG&E, like being able to pay it off. Because some people are kind of scared about the finance part, having to
Yeah.
pay an exuberant amount of cash for a
And I get
solar
that.
panel, you
And
know?
also he's like, oh, like I don't want to pay more. And totally, it's just like, if you're interested in divesting, and also the more people do it, the cheaper it'll be.
And right now that we're talking about that, the whole, you know, because I don't want people to think that, oh, I can't invest into solar panels. But what other type of ways can people now, reduce their waste, or what are some really good tips that you can share right now to the audience that we can actually help and start this movement?
For sure, yeah. So I'll start with zero waste, just because that is sort of like my jam. And then I'll kind of move into other things, because zero waste is just one piece of the puzzle. So basically, if you're in the modern world, your footprint is going to consist mainly of two things. It's going to be what you eat and if you fly. Because so, and I'm not saying, I'm not personally like a vegan. I'm probably 90% plant-based, but like sometimes I'll eat sardines and eggs, but then I'll have like vegan butter, or so I do try to reduce as much as I can.
Hmm.
So, and even, I'm not saying go completely vegetarian. I'm just saying incorporate more vegetarian meals. And also, if you
Hmm.
really want to really make a dent, like don't eat beef, because beef is like, keep eating the chicken. If everyone just like stopped eating beef, that would be amazing, because it takes the most water and resources and land and energy to create beef. And also, um, in the Amazon, for example, they are clear cutting massive amounts of forest to create cattle ranches where cows can pasture.
Yeah.
And so it's environmentally damaging on a lot of levels. And also, I'm not necessarily anti-eating meat. I'm just anti-factory farming, and the way that we are just creating our food in general. So if we were to reimagine that, that would be different. But usually, even if it's like a organic, sustainable, grass-fed beef, it's still very environmentally detrimental. So like, eat less beef. And then um and I did start with zero waste. I'm talking about
Yeah.
getting
Well,
on, but anyway.
hold on that on that question. I know we'll get on back onto that.
Yeah.
I want to ask, what do you think about GMOs? Do you believe GMOs is a good thing, since it's, you know, what's
But
your
like
perspective on
creating
GMOs?
beef in labs
No,
and
no,
things like that.
that, or like even fruits and veggies, because even fruits and veggies are also, a lot of it can be GMOs, right? Like, for instance, there's fusions of a grape and an apple. I've seen that, especially me. Like, I've seen stuff in the food industry, me being in the food industry, where it's just like we either
Yeah.
deal with some GMOs, but some people deal want just organic. What is your stance on GMOs?
I'm not as educated enough, I think, to like have a real stance on GMOs. I feel like my knowledge of it's like, oh, it's bad, let's avoid it.
Yeah.
And if that's the extent, I feel like that is something like I need to research more. But I would also say that a lot of the things, like, we have definitely, humans have had a gigantic impact on our environment, and often, in ways that are beneficial to us, like lemons, like all lemon trees, like they're, I think it's different because GMOs, I think, if I'm not mistaken, take place in a lab. But
Yeah.
like, humans, before any of the advent of like science, like we were grafting
Yeah.
lemon trees. And so like you can't have like and apples too, like we were doing things to make fruits bigger and more appealing or more tasty. And so we've been kind of genetically modifying in a way
Hmm.
since agriculture started.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if that has any effect to the environment, in general, because I was always, always heard that controversy about GMOs, like, don't need
Mhm.
GMOs, be organic. But I always wondered if GMOs are actually bad because, they're not, they're, like you said, they can be in a lab, or even, like for instance, my friend, she was pointing out like the wax on apples and stuff like that they use, you know, and how and like if it's safe for us to eat, it is even safe for the environment, you know, even though we have to mass produce like all this production. Like right now that you brought on the topic of agriculture, I always wondered the agriculture part, because agriculture is really big for us, especially
Mhm.
because we have to survive on it. If like GMOs was a bad thing for the environment, or was it actually a good thing? That was just my train of thought.
Yeah, well, you know what? What's interesting is that industrial agriculture has been a gift in a lot of ways because there's been a lot of, hunger that we've been able to, we can feed a lot of people
Yeah.
now with industrial agriculture. And I think, it has taken a lot of people out of poverty, like, and, everyone, and obviously there's still a lot of people who are hungry,
Yeah.
but like I was talking to this woman that I know from India, and she was saying that in India, like it made a really big difference because now there's more food for everyone. And she remembered that it was like, people would be really starving. And so like when industrial agriculture came in, it was actually a boon. But the thing is, industrial agriculture can be very damaging
Yeah.
to our environment because first of all, you're monocropping. So that means you're just planting the same thing everywhere. And then you're doing that year after year. So you're depleting the soil of certain nutrients
Mm.
because each plant takes certain nutrients. And if you're planting the same thing, it's taking the same nutrients and depleting the
Wow.
soil. So also a lot of people say that sometimes the food that we're eating is also not as nutrient rich as in the past because we're not doing, like, the Native Americans, they would do like the Three Sisters thing. So with the corn and different things that they were planting, they would rotate the crops because they knew that, this depletes the soil. And so also that's another thing, like there's just a lot of like indigenous knowledge and that we're, you know, not tapping into or respecting and honoring that we could, would just make our lives easier.
Yeah.
But then we're like, oh, we're doing our own thing. And it's like a lot of these things are old and like we could just do that. So in a way, like, yeah, industrial agriculture, I think we need to figure out how to live more in harmony. Like, yes, there's something to being able to produce a lot of food, but
Mhm.
also like, can we do it in a way that isn't so harmful?
Mm. Well, sorry for. I know we got off topic of what the question
No,
really was, but that was really good. That was a really good explanation. What you like, it has pros and cons. Industrial for sure. We had talked about it a little bit in a couple episodes a while back when the McDonald's, when they started serving breakfast all day, it really had effect in the food industry on prices of eggs, right? So even
what
on
happened?
oh, price on eggs just went up,
Yeah,
during that time because such a high, I mean, you think about it, McDonald's is everywhere, so that high demand is going to increase a lot more. So prices on eggs, like supply and demand, right? You're going to buy, you want eggs. Well, we only have this amount and this is how much we can sell them at, right? That was just an example of one thing, because there's also been surges of other things. Like for instance, when they have to, like the romaine lettuce, when it gets real. I remember last year it got infected like twice, I think.
yeah, the E. coli. Yeah,
Yeah, the E. coli, and honestly, they had to throw it away, but the prices of romaine also kind of went up too because of supply and demand. There was no good romaine, so the only good romaine, you can only sell it so much at that time, right? Because you have to regrow the whole process.
yeah,
So it's interesting, the whole agriculture part. And I've always wondered, because I've always been in the food industry and all that, how the environment, how the difficulties of the environment changes and the agriculture, how it's going. Like for instance, for with bees, right? Bees are almost extinct, and that really plays a lot of role in what half of our pantry in the household is
totally.
is really needed for, because bees help out the environment by pollinating, plants and whatnot. And if we lose these bees, we lose half of our food, honestly. Yeah, more or so it's crazy. But yeah, back on what your tips were. What are some
Yes.
cool, cool things that people can do, at home, or they can do right now, or even hobby projects? Like for instance, I've seen people like use like, you know aluminum cans to do their own type of jewelry or anything like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So again, back to flying. That's another thing. I mean, no one's really flying as much right now with
Hmm.
COVID, and that is a thing to do. Like, just try to fly less because it's probably like one of the worst things you can do. And even if you can drive, driving is also environmentally better than flying, even if you're in a single passenger vehicle.
Mm.
It's just like, also it's the takeoff of flying that uses the most jet fuel. So if you can do direct flights instead of or instead of stopping, doing
Hmm.
direct, that also helps because it's really the most fuel is used in the takeoff. And like, I have flown a lot in years past, and like that was a goal of mine. I was trying to do a no fly 2020, which like made it really easy this year because of COVID. It was like, oh great.
Oh,
um
home run.
so yeah, but that's the thing. Also, going back to food, like if you're interested in finding plastic-free produce, you can go to the farmers market. And I mean, that's pretty, I bet a lot of people are doing that. But what's nice about the farmers market too is that you are just eating in season without having to think
Yeah.
about it, and you're eating locally without having to think about it. And also, I think you're getting more nutrient-rich foods because if you go to like the organic stands, then you can benefit from, and also just taste better.
Yeah, it really does. You're right. It has a different taste for sure. I mean, when
Yeah.
I was working in a regular like cafe kitchen at Viejas and then switched over to a fine dining where it's all organic, yeah, you really see the difference of the taste, and that's when you're like, oh wow, like a carrot really tastes like a carrot, it doesn't taste all plasticky.
Yeah, isn't that crazy too? And that's what's, we need that sort of nutrients, I think. And then it just makes me think about like, oh, are we just like all operating on like half the level we're supposed to be because we're just like eating plastic foods? I don't know. But back to tips, as far as like zero waste, it's kind of hard in the pandemic. And for me, I've been the least zero waste that I have been since I started being zero waste in 2016, just because it's like, really difficult right now. But I do think that zero waste is just one piece of the puzzle. And I have been like flying less, so
Mhm.
I think I've actually made less of an environmental impact this year, even though I'm making more plastic because of the flying. And uh, if there's things you can do, just like being aware of what can and can't be recycled, and trying to opt for aluminum and glass over plastic. Or a good rule of thumb is if it crinkles, or if it's a film, or if it's under 4 inches, it's not going to get recycled. So don't bother putting it in the recycling bin, because the thing is,
Uh,
with recycling, you have to know that it's will only get recycled if it's valuable enough for someone to make money off of turning it into a recyclable, like recycling it.
mm.
So like if there's something covered with food, like no one is going to clean out your peanut butter jar and recycle it. Like, just throw it in the trash, because if you're not going to take the time to like clean out your peanut butter jar and like put it in recycling, like it's food soiled. So
Mm.
it's marked as a contaminant, and it's just going to go straight to landfill because they take the recycling and they sort it. And so it goes to these big facilities that are often very high tech, and they have these sensors that are, in all these different x-ray situations that are discerning what can and can't be recycled. And according to National Geographic, of all the plastic ever created, only 9% has actually been recycled.
That's what I was going to ask you. It sounds like a lot of waste doesn't even get recycled then.
Yes, so that's why zero waste is like, hey, let's just try to reduce it at the beginning. So refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, rot. And we're just really hung up on the recycle. Everyone's like, I recycle. But literally, that's like, we need to focus on refuse, reduce, reuse, and rot. Rot as in compost.
Yeah. So one cool thing that I kind of view it as like in a way recycling, because I actually kind of view it as like, oh, it's actually hidden treasure. One thing
Mhm.
that me and my fiance have been doing is actually the junk that we don't want anymore. Like for instance, especially there's a lot of stuff that I have of my dad who passed away last year.
Yeah,
Rest in peace. But
right.
of course, I stayed with some of the stuff that I love the most, but there's a lot of stuff that we didn't need. I didn't want to throw it away, but
Yeah.
so the cool thing that I thought was like, well, this junk and it's not really junk like to other people. I kind of thought like, why don't we go to the swap meet and start selling this stuff? And then
Yeah.
people started, like it's crazy. Like now that I'm seeing it, now that I'm going to the swap meet a little bit more, um, you start seeing people really are looking for like, to you it's called junk, to them it's treasure, honestly. You know what I'm saying? Um, like for instance, I just picked up against I picked up an old hobby of Pokemon cards, right? Because and I remember myself throwing away so many Pokemon cards, but then I was like thinking of this throwing away Pokemon cards back in the day, but thinking about it is like, damn, that's so much waste I just threw. And that's waste that I actually could have monetized in the long run. Like for instance, like I could, if I didn't want to have those Pokemon cards, I could have sold them instead of just creating waste. Like if I don't treasure it, someone else would treasure it. That's how I've always kind of viewed it, now that I'm doing this.
Damn, I gotta get in the swap meet. Something that I've been doing that you might be excited about is that, have you heard of the buy nothing movement?
No, what is the buy nothing movement?
So it was started by these ladies in Seattle, but you can join your local Buy Nothing group on Facebook and you just search your neighborhood and Buy Nothing. So I joined my local group and people are just posting, it's all about free gifting. So either
No.
I put on, so it's not as cool as the swap meet because you can make some money in the swap meet, but also really cool to get free stuff. So I've gotten, like, I got some forks and a bowl. So that's another tip. It's just like, instead of just, okay, logging onto Amazon and like clicking and ordering something and then having it come in 2 days,
Yes.
which is incredibly convenient. So I totally understand the
No,
allure.
yeah.
But, maybe there's a way where I don't need to spend money and I can get this for free. And I've also given away a lot of things on Buy Nothing, and it's based in your neighborhood. So I've posted a bunch of things I've got wanted to get rid of, and then people just came and grabbed them. And I've also gotten things off of Buy Nothing. And people, it's this really cool group. And so I encourage everyone to join and also just sort of rethink like the way of consumption. Because I think as Americans too, it's like so much of our American identity has been about like corporations sort of convincing us that we're lacking and that we need things, and that's what was so cool about zero waste.
Mhm.
It sort of freed me from that, where it's like I don't need to be in this state of lack or thinking that I need all these things to be
You don't
happy.
need the Gucci purse, you don't need the Coach purse.
No. And also it's sort of fun to get things for free, and you become sort of a
Yeah.
treasure finder. And
It's an
and
excitement
the
when you
swap
find
meet,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
the
an
swap
excitement.
meet has a similar feeling. Yeah.
I mean, because me and my fiance, like my fiance is even more big on it now. It's like she's all about, she'd be going on OfferUp and on Craigslist looking up for free things, like people that
You
don't
would
want
love
it.
Buy Nothing then.
Yeah. You said it, is it an app or is it a Facebook group?
So you just go on Facebook and you search Buy Nothing and then your neighborhood, and then you request to join it.
Oh, nice. All right. Man, I've repeated this over and over again. People need to get on Facebook groups and like use Facebook groups as a resource. There's so many
Ah,
resources on Facebook because some people just stay on like the whole what's my mood, what's my status, or put in the memes. I mean, I'm guilty of that too, but I do use Facebook on a lot of things, Facebook groups especially on a lot of things because some people are really nice on there. They just want to help out people. Like, hey, I want to give this out away. Or there's like for instance, Jazzy Birdsong. She was telling me like a lot of her freelancing work before she got into like the Alex Theater and the Old Globe Theater. She got through Facebook groups, people posting up job offers and whatnot. But I think Facebook groups is definitely a good platform.
yeah.
Um, now that I want to go back on a little bit on the media side. Uh, now that you're more into BuzzFeed and all that stuff, how is it easier on a level where like now that you're on this big platform and what millions are seeing to send your message rather than going solo? Like for instance, you know, us
Mhm.
for sure, like West Coast Initiative, right? We're small
Yeah.
culture. We still want to bring it up and whatnot, but it is hard, getting these stories out, getting people to share these stories and
Yeah.
stuff like that. How easy, like how hard is it going from that transition of that to BuzzFeed? Or is it like, did it just give you this whole freedom of just putting out your vision?
So, before I was just making videos, like short films that I would be submitting to festivals and things. So, like, not a lot of people were seeing my work, or I'd post some things online. Like I made a web series with Danny, who also, and I
Oh,
live with
nice.
Danny
Shout out
for,
to Danny. Oh,
yeah,
nice. Shout out to
me and
Danny.
Danny still live together. We've actually been friends since we were 9 years old. Like
Oh my
best friends
God.
for 9 years old. And then she's the reason I went to SCPA.
Oh
So,
wow.
and then she lives in LA. She's at her boyfriend's right now. But yeah, this is our apartment in LA that we've lived in for 6 years. But oh damn, I just got so sidetracked. What was the question? Sorry.
No, no, you're good. You're good. Like the transition of going from like a solo doing videos and stuff like that to going to a big platform where people
Yes.
millions are seeing.
So basically, I was just not successfully doing it on my own at all. And then I got into this, Buzzfeed machine. And then I think now, I won't be at Buzzfeed forever. And eventually I'll leave. I think I will have some skills to potentially do things on my own. I don't think I'd want to go like the YouTube route and like be a YouTuber, but maybe just I would just like to continue to make work about the environment, but in more emotionally impactful and bigger ways. And so if I could do that through like film or TV, that would be really cool.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as like being a freelancer, I think I wasn't like a actual, like I was, editing people's
Or-
preschool videos and like doing things like that. But I didn't have like a specific like environmental message. So maybe now it would be a different story if I went solo.
Yeah.
But how have you found it? Like with
It's interesting, right? Like it's a lot of people would love it, right? Because people are hearing it and whatnot. And we're definitely growing a culture of people
I
listening.
subscribe.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thank you. But it's definitely it's cool building this culture, but like at the beginning, it's a nerve wracking, right? Because you don't know how people are gonna receive it, like if people are gonna like it. You don't in even we talked about it in one episode that you're worried about your voice for the most part,
Mhm.
because you don't know how you listen to it
I like
until you listen to yourself. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now I'm so used to it. Now it's getting it's really cool because the guests that we're getting is it's not saying the past guests are not good. I love all my guests, but we're definitely getting guests in that is like, oh wow, like a little bigger. Like for instance, later on today, I have an interview with this. I'm like starstruck with this dude, like San Diego Dynasty pro paintball player. They just won
wow.
world. They just won World Cup last week in Orlando, and they're
Cool.
yeah. So it's cool the process of going, because little by little, like each guest I have on the show has their own type of fans, right? And
Mhm.
their fans are listening to the show and they're listening to these stories. Like for instance, when your episode goes up, all your fans, like all the people who follow you, hopefully will listen to this episode and be like, "Oh my god,
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely put it on my social
yeah."
medias.
But I mean, like they get a glimpse of another type of Auri Jackson, not they because sometimes I feel like on
All my fans. I have no, I don't have that many, but that's
no,
that's
no, I'm a fan. What are you talking about? I'm a fan.
sweet.
So, so that's what I mean. It's cool to share these stories because even when they share it to their families, their friends, like such an awesome feeling to be like, damn, someone really cares about your story. Being able to share that out in a platform and it's recorded. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Little by little, I think Matt's gonna come back pretty soon. He dealt with the loss of his father, unfortunately, but he's got to do what he's got to do, with his family. But I've been talking with Matt. For anybody who's been wondering, he's doing really good. Well, he's doing the best he can at the moment, but keeping tabs with him, and he'll be on the show pretty soon, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes time, and I told him we should definitely do an episode of morning and a morning time because I think people who have lost their fat loved ones or anything like that, like sometimes, like for instance with me, I lost, like when I was telling Matt, when you lose a loved one, you kind of don't know, like it's a haze, and it's a
Yeah.
process, and people, you don't even know who to go to, who to talk to, because people are trying to tell you all like I'm sorry for your loss, it's gonna be okay, like that's not what you want to hear, so hopefully we'll get him back on the show, have a discussion about that, definitely, to help out other people who are dealing with the loss, especially right now with COVID. People have lost so many
Yeah.
family members,
That's
what I'm
like
saying?
so many layers to
Yeah.
have to deal with sort of grief, but then in a pandemic as well. Yeah.
Yeah. My next question is, what has been some of your biggest challenges as a video editor or as an environmentalist?
I think just working at BuzzFeed, there's been like different. Just keeping up with the workload, I think, is challenging because it's like the model is just making as much content as possible. And
Mm.
so just like trying to not get burnt out and, pace myself and make sure that the quality of content is not going down, which is, I've made like over 100 videos in
Oh
the
wow.
5 years that I've been there. So it's just a lot. Just the web video model is just like it's one man show or one woman show and just like doing it all and like trying to make a lot at a time. And so I've gone through like different periods of like working a lot and then like trying to scale back and just like having a work-life balance, I think is the challenge. But I'm pretty good at that now.
So
Um,
you're the only one doing all these videos? Like
yeah,
you
I
really
do
mean
get
you don't have a team at all?
No, I mean, I have a team and then we send out the cuts and we get notes and I have a manager that like approves it. And then we have
Mm.
like a legal team to like look over things and like a copy team to like check our spelling and things like that. And then I also get 3 days of editing support a month. So when I first started the quota for making it was like 6 videos a month. But that was
Wow.
when, videos were like 2 minutes to 5 minutes. But then now the trend is like to make them
Shorter.
no, longer,
Oh,
10 minutes,
really?
because then you could put the ad break for
Ah,
YouTube, so the passive revenue, like monetizing it more. And then on Facebook, like it used to be really short, but now they want us to make all the videos 3 minutes at least, because then you could put the ad break and then have the monetization. So a lot of it is like dictated by that, and they don't say like make it longer just to do the ad break. It's like only if the video warrants it. But we do like, we like videos that are, if you can make an engaging video for 10 minutes, great, because then we can put an ad break. So, yeah,
oh,
just like trying to figure out how to like, continue making content and making it engaging and not getting burnt out
is
is
that
the
hard to like keep that level?
Well, I think because of the topic that I'm making videos about, environmentalism, I'm really passionate about it. And there's so many topics. Like I've really done a lot of stuff about zero waste, but this year or these last 2 years, I've really wanted to branch out to other things. And so I've been making a lot more videos about climate change and just featuring a lot of amazing people. So for me, the well is very deep and yeah.
Oh wow. Is there any like I know that you've been part of this now and you've met definitely a lot of clubs and a lot of organizations. Is there any like if anybody's out there listening who wants to join a club or organization, how can one start or how can one look? What's that process like?
Yeah, I think it just depends on like what sort of attracts you the most about environmentalism. Like maybe zero waste isn't your thing. Like maybe you're more interested in like fungi and mushrooms and like learning about mycelium or becoming a freegan, which are the people who like dig in the trash and get free. They go to the grocery stores and then they get like free food from the grocery stores. So there's many different ways in, and there's also like groups for all of these things. Like you can go on Instagram and like just search the hashtag or like search the thing. And like even if you put in like this hashtag zero waste, like so many different people will pop up.
Uh,
Like there's a whole community for anything that you could think of for environment. And there's also like Facebook groups, like which I recommend. Like there's Journey to Zero Waste. That's like a national group Facebook group that you can join. There's also like just a lot of different people. Like if you're into like urban farming or like there's this really cool guy that you would maybe love to have on the podcast. He's based in San Diego and he's called Epic Gardening.
oh,
And
okay.
he is such an amazing resource. He has like a really cool Instagram and YouTube channel, and he makes these really awesome videos just about how to get people to start growing food. And that's another thing, that's my new thing that I'm really excited about. I live in an apartment and there's a concrete space and
Hmm.
I want to turn it into like a garden because I feel like
Oh,
that's
that'd be cool.
another, way that we can help the environment is like just for us to all start growing, not all of our food, but a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm most excited about right now.
Like we grow chilies, like we grow Thai chilies,
Oh,
jalapenos. Like
cool.
yeah, we have a little chili garden area. Just because it's always like well, it's kind of easy. Might as well just do our own choice. I mean, we have a lot of salsas, right? We're a Mexican family, so we be making a lot of salsas. That's a way to cut our expense.
And that's the other thing too, like I feel like there's so many things that are already sustainable about a lot of the cultures that exist, you know? So
Hmm.
like a lot of practices in like Mexican culture are really sustainable already, you know? So it's just like getting back to things that like, you know, our grandparents were doing.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
It's nothing new. It's just like, oh, yeah, this is the
No,
thing.
you're right. Oh man, I don't need to be on the iPod this whole time. Another thing I was going to ask: what has been your biggest awe moment in your journey? Your jaw dropping, mind blowing. What has
Oh,
been that moment for you?
huh. Whoa. I think wow. That's a hard one. I think there's been like a few aha moments. Um, I think just realizing that I had the power to change how I'm interacting with the planet. And like if that's through zero waste, it just has been felt very like aha empowering, where okay, yes, I'm only one person and I'm reducing my waste, and like how big of a difference is that going to make in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
especially, you know, when you walk into Costco and everything's in plastic and you're like whatever, but it makes me feel good. So, and I think, you know, we don't need everyone doing zero waste perfectly or being a perfect environmentalist. Also, no one can
Mhm.
be, it's possible. And so we just need everyone trying their best and doing imperfectly and like
Just those little
reducing and
steps.
yeah, reducing where they can. And it eventually it'll like bleed into other parts of your life, you
Mhm.
know.
Right now,
So that's
the
one thing.
with the
Yeah.
whole political climate right now, with especially with the election, Joe Biden finally. I think today I just saw that Michigan already certified for sure that he won. Anyways, how do you see the with the whole political party shifting? How do you see the environment? You know, being helped out now in the future? Because I know Joe Biden was a little bit more pro environment, trying to get more resources out there.
Yeah. So Trump was pretty detrimental to the environment. I'm sure we all know that. But I mean, he appointed like a coal lobbyist to be the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. And so then he and they were just sort of systematically dismantling all of these protections in place. Like there was this New York Times article that was talking about how like they had a specific number, it was around 100 of like the environmental protections that were repealed or pulled back. So I think now that Biden is in office, he's gonna, you know, go toward go, you know, get back into some environmental regulation, and that's great. And also he's going to get us back into the Paris Climate Agreement. So in 2015, you know, this was a historic climate agreement where a bunch of nations signed on to this saying, hey, we as a world, we're going to try to limit our emissions to 2 degrees. Now we know that it needs to be 1.5, but at the time it was a very landmark thing. And then Trump said, hey, we're going to get out of that. But he, you know, we were officially got out of it like a month ago, but Biden says the first thing that we're going to do is get back into that. So that's really great. You know, just that he has a climate plan is
Yeah.
great, because a lot of candidates, it just hasn't been. Right now is really exciting because this was the first time in a presidential debate where this was actually a topic that was asked. And like, I think in both of the debates, this was brought up, climate change. And
Mhm.
that's the first time that has happened. And so I think that there's a shift. And, you know, yes, there's things in Biden's policy that can totally be critiqued, and like he's into fracking and that sort of thing. And so, but it's better than Trump.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
That's good. I mean, I really didn't know much about the. I mean, I don't want to sound naive, but I really didn't know much about the Paris Agreement. You know, like I
No,
didn't
I
know.
mean, I
I
didn't
didn't.
know how I got into this sort of thing, you know,
Mhm.
like that's something I learned about
If,
later. Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, what exactly do they do? Like, what regulations are they doing for that agreement? That was good.
So it's basically all of the nations deciding to limit their emissions so that we can keep our world in livable, you
Like,
know.
what's an example of how do they lower?
It depends. Each country kind of will set their own way of going about that, but the agreement was kind of just like, oh, this is what we're doing, and certain nations will do it differently. So for the US,
Gotcha.
that could mean like we put in laws in place to reduce our emissions, or we start doing like cap and trade, or like basically taxing factories who are emitting, like they have to pay more money, and so then they'll have an incentive to like reduce their emissions. There's other places like the developing world too, like there's a lot of people that don't have electricity, and
Mm.
they that's like a those people should be allowed to do that. But the thing is, like, if we got all those people electrified that aren't currently, that would really fuck our climate. So,
Yeah.
well, if they did it on coal, so
No.
the goal is to get them to just jump right to renewable energy, to solar and wind. But then like the developing world also needs the buy-in of the richer countries to help them make that happen, and the education. And the rich world really hasn't like stepped up. And none of the countries are on track to meet the goals set by the Paris Climate Agreement.
Wow.
So that is also concerning. But you know, there's going to be more. So they have these international climate meetings, uh, every couple years, or I don't know, it might even be once a year. And so people all come together and try to, make these political agreements. And also, this is not something where it doesn't affect, like if we're emitting, it affects other people. And so
Yeah.
it's important that this is like a global issue that we all need to
No,
work with.
yeah. I mean, you said it. You said it earlier in Alaska. Those houses that are going down. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, not to have a house because of the climate change. That's
Yeah.
and even our wildlife as well. It's just as in danger as we are. Even if not more in danger. Because we're destroying habitats, either cutting down for rainforest, or too much pollution. It is crazy, and I guess we don't really see it in retrospect because we just kind of view it in one eyeglass, right? Unless we're really exposed to what's happening to us around the world, you
Yeah.
know.
And we're seeing
Damn,
fires,
yeah.
and like the things like that, but like it's still
I feel like the
like
fires have gotten worse. I
they
feel
have,
like they've gotten worse.
and like things can get really uncomfortable in our lifetimes, like if we don't reduce,
Hmm.
like it can get not fun.
um, so my next question is, who has been the biggest like inspiration in your life? Has it been like your both your parents, being single parents, or you had a role model, mentor, teacher?
Yeah, I would definitely say my parents for sure. And my grandparents.
All
I
right.
guess just like uh, family focused have been sort of my role models. I really enjoy sort of my dad's approach to life, where he just really takes a positive approach, even for things that you would think might be uncomfortable, but then he like just decides to have a different viewpoint. Like he was working at the Del Mar Fair, like as a cleaner, and then he like got yelled at by one of the people, who was like his boss in Spanish,
Uh,
and then he's like, "Oh, I've never gotten yelled at in Spanish before. It was very exciting." So, instead of like letting that ruin his day.
That's so funny.
So, or like just like he just has like a different way of viewing like some things that maybe would be highly uncomfortable for others. He's like,
Yeah.
well, let me just have a different perspective. So yeah.
And yeah, I'm assuming your mom is opposite, or
Oh, I think she's more like a regular person that will get bothered by like things that would,
yeah.
bother most people. But she also is just really inspiring because, she had me really young, and then, pursued getting her education, and like has really like made it happen for herself. She was like the first person to go to college in her family, and totally changed sort of like our trajectory, I think, and my trajectory, because she was really committed to like, yeah, getting an education. And Not that that is the only way, you know, to
No.
be successful, but, you
Yeah.
know, for her, it helped.
Yeah. I mean, and it's cool because like you said right now, it's not the only way, right? You don't have to have a degree in already trying to save the world. You don't. You can do it right now, you know. Um, what's your last message you want to leave before, you know, to the audience out there? What do you want to stamp out there as Ariana Jackson?
You know, I guess just try one thing. And if, you know, it can be really overwhelming when you think about just the world at large and all the environmental problems, but start with one thing and just try that. And from there, if that feels good, try some other things. But, you know, just try to focus on what do you think will be sustainable in your life and will improve your life, or that you'll get joy out of doing. Like, sustainability should be joyful, like it should improve your life. It shouldn't be this thing that, you know, you feel guilty about not doing.
Mm,
So find a way to incorporate something small. Maybe, you know, you change over one of your routines, like your coffee routine. You create a plastic free coffee routine, and then you can feel good, like, oh, I'm not using filters anymore. Or, you know, there's just take joy in the little things.
is there any household items you think that we actually don't know that we're actually making a lot more waste of?
Paper towels, I feel like that's a really easy one that people can do. Like,
Oh,
I just have a bunch of rags, like an old towels that I've just cut up and create
mhm.
rags. And then I have a little laundry bag in one of my cabinets, and I just add it. And then maybe once or twice every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
every 1 or 2 weeks, I will do the laundry. But I just don't use paper towels. That's a really start with paper towels.
Hey,
Just
that's a good idea. No, that for real. I mean, I have a janitorial service, so we have a bunch of towels for sure, bunch of rags. But you're right, a lot of people who don't, you know, they end up tend to use a lot of paper towels, and that was a big thing at the beginning of the pandemic, not having paper towels or toilet paper in the stores.
Yeah. And
So
another thing with that is just with the, sometimes people think that the disposable product is like actually better because you're saving the water by like not washing it. But the thing is, a reusable product is always better, because for a disposable product, water and energy and resources, new resources, have to go into it each time. So when a paper towel is created, you have to use water, energy, and new material or new
mm,
paper. So a reusable product is better, like a rag is better, because even though you're washing it, you're using it many times. And you're not washing it alone, you're washing it with a bunch of other rags. So
oh wow.
I don't know, that's just, I know that's not the good thing to like end on, but that's just
No, I
the
mean that's a
I,
good
I
thing right now.
why reusable is like a good thing, you know, because sometimes you hear like, oh, it's, you know, but then you're wasting all the water washing all the reusable, so that's a,
Yeah.
like a false thing.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's a big thing, right, in California, because water is very expensive in California. You know, because we don't get our water from California,
Yeah.
technically. But I that's a good way to know, because I totally thought the same thing. You know, I thought you'd be wasting more water if you're just washing dishes. My buddy was just telling me too. I don't know if it's true, but it's better to use a dishwasher than to use the sink to wash your dishes, because I guess he was telling me that the science of a dishwasher is that it reuses its own water, and you're
It
not.
uses less water, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, it uses
I would
less
be
water.
interested to know though, with those studies, if like, see, when I wash dishes, I turn off the water
Uh-huh.
in between when I'm scrubbing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I don't let it just run. So I wonder if these studies, but yes, I have heard that in general,
Well,
use
I
water
mean,
is
it's crazy to hear that we supposedly waste a gallon of water when we brush our teeth, you know, and so I don't know how many gallons we're wasting on
enough,
dishes.
you know, just be good habit.
Right?
Happy turning it on and off.
Ari, where's the best place can people follow you and keep tabs, or have any questions about how they can, you know, help the environment? Where's the best place they can reach you?
Just at Auri Jackson, I guess, on Instagram, Auri Jackson. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I enjoyed talking to you so much.
No, I am glad you're on. And like I said, you were one of the people that I really wanted on. I've always followed you since high school, like your progression, and you when you joined Buzzfeed. I'm not gonna lie, I was even like, oh yeah, I know a person that's in Buzzfeed. You know, like it was kind of a cool
Oh,
content.
well,
Off, you
that
know.
makes me feel special.
And like I said, yeah, even though you said earlier you don't have fans, like I'm one of your fans, so you know,
Also, it's such a pleasure to like actually get to talk to you because like I we didn't really talk that much in high school,
no,
and like
yeah.
so it's fun to like actually get to know you more.
Yeah, we talked more so I think a little bit towards the end of senior
Yeah,
year, you know, when everybody
yeah,
was like really saying their goodbyes and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
oh man, we should have got to know each other a little bit more.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it is really cool that we got to like really connect, you know, and see your viewpoint, where you've been through in life and stuff like that, and even sharing my stories too. Like,
Yeah.
it's a really cool adventure at the moment. Unfortunately, we're all living in a pandemic, but it's kind of like what your dad, right? Like, don't let this get you down. Like, be positive about it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to be positive, just like try to adapt.
Mhm.
Don't be negative either. Like, if you're not a person that's like, oh, I hate positivity. Well, don't be a person about I'm all about negativity either. Like, if you want to be real with yourself and be real. Like, okay, well, you got to do this to get to that goal.
Totally.
Like us, we're growing little by little on the West Coast Initiative podcast. Hope
Woohoo.
um, hopefully I have this actually as my first video recording, Ari.
Oh,
So hopefully this and now I'm going because I wanted to dust off on my editing, on my video editing. I want to start
yeah.
posting these videos more and expand more, share you guys' stories. So thank you so much, Ari, for coming on the show. You guys
Thank
here,
you.
Ari, you find her on Instagram and on Facebook too, right? Or just
I
Instagram?
do have a Facebook page that is my name also. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably like, yeah, I don't want people on
I mean, you can go.
that.
I have like a public page too. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
you guys can follow Ari on Instagram, Facebook, and even you probably see her on the groups as well, Facebook groups.
Beyond
um,
the by nothing. Yeah.
yeah, right. All right, Ari, thank you so much. You have what do you got planned for the rest of the day? It's this is the first time I do an
Well,
interview in the morning, actually.
I stayed up so late last night, so I made nap. I was like up till like 4:30 a.m.
Oh wow. Yeah,
But I feel great. So
you sound great. You sound like with a lot of energy too. All right. Well, I gotta go back to my son.
yes, yes,
So
so exciting. Yeah, I'm so excited for you and your new family
all
and
right.
everything. So
And
best
happy
wishes,
Thanksgiving to
sending
you.
love.
Happy
Happy,
Thanksgiving to
happy
your family.
Thanksgiving.
All right, all
Looking
right.
forward. I'm excited to like promote the episode and all that. So if
Oh,
there's like graphics or things you want me to post, I'm happy to do.
oh
Happy
yeah,
to do
thank
that.
you. No, thank you so much, Ari. And hopefully you get to listen to the other SCPA alumni because I'm
Yes,
not gonna lie.
I'm gonna do that. Oh
They're
my god.
really fun. They're really fun to listen to. Jasmine's was really fun. And Mariah, like there's so many people that have gone from there. And I'm very proud of where we came from because we definitely have a lot of alumni, especially in our class, who have done a lot of exciting things in our
Also, I
careers.
didn't realize how amazing our high school was. Like I talked to other people in their high school experience. I was like, oh, we were really privileged.
Yeah, I mean, my fiance gets a little jealous on that too. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Ari, coming on the show, and
I hope to meet your fiance and son at some point.
I
Yeah.
will. You will.
I met her at the reunion, I
I'm
think.
sorry.
I met her at the reunion.
Yeah, you did. You did meet her at the reunion. You're right. You just didn't meet my son though. He was still in the oven at that time.
Have a good one.
Later.